So today I'm going to show you how to do the handmade under bonnet for the headgear for the television version of Handmaid's Tale. This is probably going to be unedited, so I'm going to try not to swear, but we're going to try and do this in real time. So I'm starting out here. This is all the pieces for both the under bonnet and for the wings. This tutorial is actually just going to be for the under bonnet. So there's only two pieces here that we're going to use, as well as a small piece of elastic and a threader. If you don't have a threader like this, you can use a safety pin. I'll use a crochet hook if I'm desperate, and I'll just tie it around the hook part of it. It's basically just you're going to end up needing to get this elastic through a channel that you make. So first thing what I did was I cut everything out. The pattern pieces you draft yourself, and they're based on instructions on my blog. It's a free tutorial at celebrationgeneration.com/blog. I'll put a link in the description. And then I iron everything because it'll just be nicer to work with. So for the band part of this, I'm going to undo this and then flip it over opposite to the way that I've already ironed it. And I'm just going to sew the edges here. I like to use a serger for this, but you can use a straight stitch with a zigzag on the edge to finish it off also. It's not going to be seen, so whatever. And you're going to do that to both sides. Whoa! That didn't sound very healthy. You want to pause? Alright, so turns out the serger's not going to be working, so we'll use just a sewing machine, which will work fine. So I'm going to just finish off this edge that I did with the serger with a straight stitch. Then I'll flip it over. Get a wide zigzag on that just to finish it off. Then we're going to clip just the very tip of this. Be sure not to cut into your actual main seam. And then flip them inside out. Use closed scissors or chopstick, something not actually sharp, to poke the edge out, the tip out as much as you can. And then just straighten that all out along where the original ironing was. Now, if you're less confident in your abilities, you can zigzag this open edge just on the very edge. I don't tend to do that, but that is always an option for you. Now with this, generally speaking, I serge the edge, but I'm going to zigzag it today because my serger does not feel like working. So here we go. And this is just to finish off the edge and make it look a little nicer. It gives it a little bit more stability. Fascinating, right? So, threads off. Now this particular piece of linen doesn't really have a right side and a wrong side. If you have a right side, you're going to want it down when you do the next part, and you're going to fold back an inch. Put it on a straight stitch or a very narrow zigzag, and then you're going to sew this channel, and you're going to sew it as close to the zigzagged edge as you can. Because it's on a curve, you're going to need to gather some of that fullness in to create a normal straight-ish seam. If you're a bit less confident, you can pin this. You can even iron it and pin it if you want it really perfect. It's going to be just gathered into a small piece of elastic, so you don't need it to be perfect. And then finish that off. Now the size I'm demonstrating here is a large bag. If this was for someone with a little bit less hair, for the pattern on my blog, you'd actually cut this a little bit shorter this way. So now what I've done is this piece of elastic is the measurement from the back of one ear to the back of the other across the back of my head, plus 2 inches, as described in the blog entry. So I'm going to run this through the channel that I just created. And now if you're less confident in your abilities to get this elastic through without losing it, depending on what material, like what, I guess, equipment you're using to pull it through, if you don't have something like this, if you have more like a bobby or a safety pin or whatever, you can cut the elastic any amount longer than what you need. That you want. Just make sure that you remember that you're not cutting off 2 inches this time, you're cutting off 1 inch. Or you're cutting off however many inches. So for this, I'm leaving about 1 inch. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna just do it all the way. Well, no, I'll do the 1 inch. So I'm leaving about 1 inch from this side here. And I'm just gonna finish that, sew it on. My sewing machine is about 100 years old, and it likes to give tantrums when I really don't need it to. So we're going to try that again. It's probably time for a tune-up. Oh, you know what? This came undone. Because we're doing this real time, you get to see all the ugly bits of frustration that I get to deal with when I'm sewing, rather than polished TV. Take 3. There we go. So that's just to secure that end of the elastic in. Now you're going to pull the rest of the elastic through. Be very, very careful not to lose the other end of the elastic, because then you have to cut this part out and you've got a shorter length to work with. It's just all around frustrating, so try not to. So I'm going to take, I had a little bit less than an inch last time, so I'll go a little bit more than an inch this time. And I'm just securing this down to the other end. And I'll just distribute the fullness of the fabric in a little bit, so you get a little bit more straight on the two ends. Now at this point, normally I just serge this right across and I'm done with it, but it's going to take a little bit longer because I'm going to straight stitch and then zigzag this. So line up the edge of your folded piece, your brim, with the edge of your bag, and the right side of the brim should be, or the right side of the bag should be facing the brim. I lost my foot pedal. Now again, you can pin this if you want. I don't tend to bother. And just line up the two bottom edges here. Now if you were serging, you'd be done that point here, but because I'm just doing a straight stitch, I'm going to zigzag the edge to hold them together and finish it off a little bit. And just trim the ends of the yarn. And this is your basic hat, and it's mostly finished. So you're just going to want to distribute that out a little bit. See, I'm not used to sewing without my serger, so there's all these little bits of ribbon that are loose. So it's not the nicest. You know, I might be a little spoiled. I love using a serger. So the only thing left to do is to secure this up to the seam here. So now what I like to do is just fold it to where I want it to be, usually just slightly beyond where the brim matches the bag. I had to get my hand sewing needle. I just bring it up from the inside. And I'm just going to tack it in place with 2 or 3 stitches. Let's go 3 just so I don't feel like I shortchanged you after saying 2 or 3. Then we finish it off on the inside. Knot it a few times and trim it off. And of course you're going to repeat that on the other side. Of course I just put my sewing needle into a bunch of cut-offs. Not the smartest thing to do. So again, I just fold it back, line it up here, bring the needle through the inside. Oh, I'm a klutz today. I just lost my thread. And just secured a few little stitches. And there we go. Can you pass me that head? The things that get said in this household. So, these heads are much smaller than actual human size. But there you see your Handmaid's Tale underbonnet. They're very comfortable. That actually holds a lot of hair. So, if you don't have a ton of hair, I'd go with the smaller size that I'd recommended on the blog. So there we go.